Position of Youth, Sport and Art Recreation Minister, I really grew to understand that His Excellency had placed a lot of trust in me, and I'm very grateful for that trust, Your Excellency. I'm very grateful to be working with all of these young people in the room, and not just in the room. As you've heard, we've been trying to convey the message to everybody outside who couldn't join us here today, and the feedback has really been pretty amazing. We have incredible talent within our youth who are very adaptable, and they change to situations very quickly, and that's a huge advantage and a huge skill that we have as Zimbabweans. Your Excellency, you heard a brief wrap-up on how yesterday went, and I'd like to share 3 of the points that I took away from yesterday. The first one being a solution of young people wanting to volunteer, wanting to give of their time, and wanting to be a part of the Rebuild Zimbabwe. The second one, which was spoken about, I think, in every single panel and most of the conversations I had on the side, was about collaboration. We need each other. One person isn't going to make a difference, but if we all come together and we work towards making our vision and your vision of 2030 and the African Union vision of 2060 a reality, we can only do that together. And the collaboration that was and has been happening from yesterday was extremely inspirational to me. And thirdly, the last point I took away is that young people in and around the room are ready to start now, and they want to take ownership, and they want to help in a way that, in any way that they can, in moving our country forward and making our future now, as the theme says. So, Your Excellency, if you allow me, some of the discussions, and before we jump into some of the questions from the floor, I would love to ask you a few questions. And I guess my first question would be, when you were younger, when you were 16, 17, 18, what did you think your future would be?
Well, thank you very much, Minister. May I recognize the Vice President, General Suwenga, who is with us here, and other cabinet ministers who are here, the Deputy Minister, and the government senior officials who are here, and indeed you young people assembled here. Well, that question, in 1949, my father took me to Shabani, now Shawani. I was about 6 years old then. And to go and show me a plane, landing and taking off. So he carried me on his bicycle. When we arrived, after some time, a small plane landed. And after about 2 hours, it took off again. I was very impressed. So I told my father, when I grow up, I want to be a pilot. So that was my initial ambition as I grew up. But events in the family did not make it possible. About that same time, things were happening in the country, which forced my parents to leave the then Southern Rhodesia. I'll tell you a little story. At Mnangagwa village in Shavana now, we have a deep tank. At the deep tank, once a week, we take our cattle for dipping. And at this time in history, there was an officer called LDO, Land Development Officer, a young white man who came to our deep tank and was destocking cattle. So there was an old woman who had 5 cattle. Then this young man said, the old woman must sell 2 and keep 3. My father, you know, we are the Chief Mapanzure clan. My father and his brothers said, no, the old woman cannot keep 3. She has to keep the 5. If she has 3, she cannot survive. But this young man said, no, he was the boss, she must keep 3. And wrote in the little book. This young man had come to the deep tank in a Land Rover. So my father and his colleagues took off one wheel from the Land Rover and took up the wheel up the hill. So about 4 o'clock, when this young man finished his work at the deep tank, discovered that his Land Rover was now on 3 wheels. Says, what has happened to my other wheel? He said, well, that old woman is going to live with 3 cattle. You drive back to Shaban on 3 wheels. So on the basis of that, my father was not right. Eventually we were kicked out and we went to Northern Rhodesia, which is Zambia now. So that changed my attitude because I felt that punishment was not necessary when we were kicked out and grew up in Northern Rhodesia, Zambia, that we are now. So that's when I changed from wanting to be a pilot and joined UNIP, United Nations Independence Party of Kenneth Kaunda, in 1960. 59, I think, 1959 and 1960. I think that's enough for now.
Thank you, Excellency. Yesterday, we were talking about critical skills. And around some of the discussion, when we were talking about critical skills, there were different skills being mentioned in terms of our ability as a person to ask questions, our ability to really analyze a program or a solution, a problem, and come up with a solution. And you've been extremely successful in your career and as a lawyer. And how and what do you think some of your critical skills are?
Well, yes, I'm a lawyer, but I never designed to become a lawyer. Circumstances forced me to become a lawyer. I don't say it's good to be expelled, but I was expelled from college in 1960 because, again, it's not a crime anymore. We had burnt a house of one of the lecturers at the college. So we got expelled. So I became political activist at that age. And my desire was to become a soldier. And indeed, 1962, I was able to be taken by ZANU to go to Tanganyika, Tanzania now, where we were sent for military training in Egypt, and subsequently China, and then graduated in 1964 at Nanking Military Academy. So that was my desire to be a soldier, and I achieved that. Down the line, I got arrested. I think you know the background, sentenced to death, survived those technicalities in terms of age. At the time, the age of majority was 21, and at the time I underwent foreign military training, I was under 21. So I was saved from being hanged, but my colleagues were executed. Then I went to prison, Maxwell prison, I think you know about it. Harare, the Sosbin prison, which is now Harare, Grey prison. Then lastly at Maxwell prison, where I spent my 10 years there. I did my private studies there. I was wanted to be an economist. But then the subjects I chose were not available. Then I decided to fall back to do law because I admired the lawyer who defended me. I forget, it was a Canadian, John somebody, in the High Court. He was so brilliant, and I thought this was really nice. So I decided to become a lawyer. But I started my law in prison. So that's how I gained the skill as trained as a lawyer, but of course also as a soldier. I would want everybody here, the modern world we're living, there are more skills and professions which now relate to the current modern world. During my time, didn't have ICT, we had not cell phones, there were no computers. So if you look at it, although we're graduates at that time, this is over, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago, we're graduates. But with these gadgets which are there today, we are illiterate. You are now more educated than ourselves who had degrees 50 years ago. I think that you young people should look at the modern world, the modern economy, and find careers which fit with the modern economy. It's easy for you today to go on the internet and discuss with somebody in Beijing, discuss with somebody in Haiti, discuss with somebody in Mars, if there are any people there. You are now connected. It's easy for you to acquire knowledge sitting at home. During our time, we had to read and then study. Those who were a bit developed, they would use candles. But people like myself used fire. Then read. Fire goes off, again it will be the same. But we passed. So I cannot expect you to aspire to that period. It's behind us. You should now aspire to be able to mix and to work and be competitive with anybody from any jurisdiction in the world. We as government must provide facilities for you so that if you went to Australia, if you went to Canada, if you went to the United States of America, if you went to South Africa, you don't feel out of place. You should be able to mix and compete. This is why now we are looking at the restructuring of the curriculum of both our tertiary institutions as well as institutions of higher learning, so that we produce products that relate to the economy, to industry, and commerce. This is the modern world, and you, the young people, should help us create that environment which suits your future. This is why we are here, and we need to dialogue with you so it can help us understand your needs. But of course, it is important for you to understand where you come from, and that you get from us. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. And I think it's a huge inspiration to hear some of the stories that you've gone through, along with many others. But it's an inspiration because you came out the other side and fought for freedom for our country, it is, as you said, now we look forward. We always recognize and we give thanks to the past, but now it's time to look forward. So on that note, I would like